It's an honor and a pleasure each time Bob Beitcher, Jennifer Clymer, Courteney Bailey, Sharon Siefert come on the show. They will read their favorite poems. For my introduction, or should I say invocation, I'm going to read one page from one of my favorite books. It's from Letter to an Imaginary Friend by Thomas McGrath, who was a blacklisted writer. He was teaching at Los Angeles State College when he got blacklisted in the 50s. It's an epic. It's a 404-page epic, and he's a socialist. He's always for the working class. Here's my excerpt. And did we burn? We burned with a cold flame. And did we freeze? We froze in bunches of 5. And did we complain? We did. We did. We did. Sometimes at evening with the dusk sifting down through the trees, and the trees like a smudge on the white hills, and the hills drifting into the hushed night, into the huge, the looming, holy night. Sometimes then, in the pause and balance between dark and day, with the noise of our labor stilled, and still in ourselves we felt our kinship, our commune against the cold. In that rich and friendly hour when the hunting hawks whirred home, we stilled our talking, and silent sang our compline and vesper song. It was good singing, that silence, from the riches of common work, the solidarity of forlorn men, firm on our margin of poverty and cold. Communitas, holy city, laughter at 40 below, round song, the chime of comradeship that comes once maybe in the winter of the blue snow. The magnificent readers in order of appearance are Bob Beitcher, CEO, President, MPTF, Jennifer Clymer, Director, MPTF Studios, Courteney Bailey, Chief Development Officer at MPTF, Sharon Siefert, Vice President of Legal Affairs at MPTF. Here's Bob Beitcher.
Thank you, Harry. And thank you, as always, for hosting this remarkable show and inviting us all on to share our poetry and hopefully to inspire others to love and read poetry and write poetry, for that matter. So I've selected a very eclectic group of poems. It's hard for me to say my favorite poems because we'd be here for several days. Very bad at choosing favorites when it comes to poetry. They're like children. And I'm going to talk about some of them very briefly. I know I've got a limited amount of time, and then some of them I'm just going to read. So I'm going to start with one from a Spanish poet called Antonio Machado. And here's the poem. Beside the black water, a scent of sea and jasmine, Malagueñan evening. That's the poem. And the reason I love this poem, and it has stuck with me for a long time, is it really consists of 3 statements. They don't follow in any logical order. They're not dependent on each other for their existence and are not associated in a way that I've ever seen before. Sometimes when I first read it, I thought maybe this poem is a fragment from a longer poem, but it's not. And so to me, it's interesting because in a sense, maybe this is true of all poetry, but we, the readers, are creating this poem for the poet. And it's that process, it's that consciousness of how we're connecting these 3 somewhat unrelated statements to create a poem in our own hearts and minds that is of interest to me. So that's that one. Here's another one. These are somewhat obscure, Harry. You're probably going to wonder who the hell are these people. The next one is a poem from a Austrian poet obviously in translation, named George Trakl, Trakl. And it's called Summer. At evening, the complaint of the cuckoo grows still in the wood. The grain bends its head deeper, the red poppy. Darkening thunder drives over the hill. The old song of the cricket dies in the field. The leaves of the chestnut tree stir no more. Your clothes rustle on the winding stair. The candle gleams silently in the dark room. A silver hand puts the light out. Windless, starless night. So for me, this is another example of these series of great images. He's pieced them together. They're like a jigsaw puzzle. He obviously had a reason for ordering them this way. They're somewhat unconnected realities. The world goes from outside to inside. They kind of force us as readers into a different state of consciousness in terms of how we enjoy them compared to some other poems. If you compare it to a poem by T.S. Eliot, they're worlds apart, but they're both poetry. So now I'm going to move to Anne Bradstreet, the first, a female poet from American poet, probably the first writer in England's North America colonies to be published. And this is a poem called If Ever Two Were One. If ever two were one, then surely we. If ever man were loved by wife, then thee. If ever wife was happy in a man, compare with me, ye women, if you can. I prize thy love more than the whole mines of gold, or all the riches that the east doth hold. My love is such that rivers cannot quench, nor aught but love from thee give recompense. Thy love is such I can no way repay. The heavens reward thee manifold repay. Then while we live in love, let's so persevere that when we live no more, we may live ever. That last two lines are a little tricky because in those days, persevere would be persever, and it would rhyme with ever. So this is just, to me, a beautiful love poem from the 17th century, and American, where you see reading English Renaissance poetry from that period, but this is actually an American poet. Next up is Mary Oliver. Can't have favorite poems without including Mary Oliver. Actually, I have two, but I'll just do one right now. This is called Why I Wake Early. Hello, sun in my face. Hello, you who made the morning and spread it over the field and into the faces of the tulips and the nodding morning glories and into the windows of even the miserable and the crotchety. Best preacher that ever was, dear star. It just happens to be where you are in the universe, to keep us from ever darkness, to ease us with warm touching, to hold us in the great hands of light. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Watch now how I start the day in happiness, in kindness. So it's a beautiful poem, and for those of us who really need something to get us in the right mood in the morning, a wonderful poem. And another one from Mary Oliver from her book of poetry called Percy. I asked about her dog, Percy. I asked Percy how I should live my life. Love, 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 says Percy, and hurry as fast as you can along the shining beach or the rubble or the dust. Then go to sleep, give up your body heat, your beating heart, then trust. Great advice from a dog. Next up is Edgar Bowers, An Afternoon at the Beach. I'll go among the dead to see my friend. The place I leave is beautiful. The sea repeats the wind's far swell in its long sound, and there beside it, houses solemnly shine with the modest courage of the land, while swimmers try the verge of what they see. I cannot go, although I should pretend some final self whose phantom eye could see him who, because he is, cannot change. And yet the thought of going makes the sea, the land, the swimmers, and myself seem strange, almost as strange as someday they will be. Next is a poem from C.K. Williams called Friends. My friend Dave knew a famous writer who used to have screwdrivers for breakfast. He'd start with half gin and half juice, and the rest of the day he'd sit with the same glass in the same chair and add gin. The drink would get paler and paler. Finally, he'd pass out. Every day was the same. Sometimes when I'm making milk for the baby, cutting the thick, sweet formula from the can with sterilized water, the baby, hungry again, still hungry, rattling his rickety, long-legged chair with impatience, I think of that story. Dave says the writer could talk like a god. He'd go on for hours in the same thought. In his books, though, you never find out why he drove so hard towards his death. I have a death in my memory that lately the word itself always brings back. I'm not sure quite why. A butterfly, during a downpour one afternoon, hooked onto my screen. I thought it was waiting. The light was just so, its eyes caught the flare, so it seemed to be watching me in my bed. When I got to come up closer, and it should have been frightened, it hung on. After the rain, it was still there. Its eyes were still shining. I touched the screen, and it fell to the ledge. There were blue streaks on its wings. A while later, the wind took it. The writer drowned in his puke or his liver exploded. It depends on the story. He was a strong man for all that. He must have thought it was taking forever. Dave says when he'd wake with amnesia, he wouldn't want you to fill in the gaps. He just wanted his gin and his juice. From all that you hear, he was probably right. When we were young and we'd drink our minds to extinction, that was the best part. You did this, you said that. It was like hearing yourself in a story. Sometimes real life is almost the same, as though you were being recited. You cannot almost tell what a thought is before it arrives. When I follow my mind now, another butterfly happens. It's not hard to see why. It's the country this time. The butterfly walked over the white table and onto my hands. I lifted it and it held. My friends were amazed. Catherine tried too, but the butterfly fluttered away. I put my hand back in the air and it found me again. It came down on a finger and clung. Its sails listed. I could see it untwirling the barb of its tongue on my nail. I shook it away. Those were the days and nights when Catherine and I were first falling in love. Sometimes in the dark, I'd still be afraid, but she'd touch my arm and I'd sleep. The visions I had then were all death. They were hideous and absurd and had nothing to do with my life. All I feel now about death is a sadness, not to be here with everyone I love. But in those days, I'd dream, I'd be racked. Catherine would have to reach over to hold me. In the morning, it would be better. Even at dawn, when I'd wake first, trembling, gasping for air, I'd burrow back down. Catherine would open her eyes, smiling, with me at her breast, and it would be better. I think, Harry, one more. Do I have time for one more?
Yes, that would be great.
So this is one of my favorite poems, and Harry will appreciate. The poet is Ivor Winters. a great professor at Stanford for many years. He had gone by the time I got there, but was a big influence on poetry in that period. It's called At the San Francisco Airport, to my daughter, 1954. This is the terminal. The light gives perfect vision, false and hard. The metal glitters deep and bright. Great planes are waiting in the yard. They are already in the night. And you are here beside me, small, contained and fragile, and intent on things that I but half recall. Yet going whither you are bent, I am the past, and that is all. But you and I in part are one, the frightened brain, the nervous will, the knowledge of what must be done, the passion to acquire the skill to face that which you dare not shun. The rain of matter upon sense destroys me momently. The score, there comes what will come. The expanse is what one thought and something more, one's being and intelligence. This is the terminal, the break. Beyond this point on lines of air, you take the way that you must take, and I remain in light and stare, in light and nothing else, awake.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank
You
you.
always have such fabulous choices. Love, departure, family. Thank you for those superb poems. Our next poet is Jennifer Clymer.
Hi. So I have a mix for you. What I thought was I sing often on the station, so I should probably bring a song. And my apologies in advance to Mark and to Bette Midler, but I chose The Rose because I think it's a wonderful song with beautiful lyrics. And I also went back to my drama and theatrical background. A couple of my favorite monologues, which I knew I would never get to perform because they're monologues for men. But one in particular, it's from Thomas Jones and Harvey Schmidt, who wrote The Fantastics, the longest running off-Broadway musical. I have two poems that are monologues from that show that I wanted to start off with. The first opens up the second act. And the first act has a lot of love and drama, and they end in this very happy tableau with a son and a daughter who are separated by a fence, who love one another. Their fathers pretend that they hate each other throughout the first act to just, flame or fan the flames of love between these two young people. And at the end of the first act, the fathers come together, the young lovers are together, everyone is very happy. And it was all orchestrated by El Gallo, who is our narrator for this. And this is how El Gallo starts the second act. Their moon was cardboard, fragile. It was very apt to fray, and what was last night scenic may seem cynic by today, for the play's not done. Oh no, not quite. For life never ends in the moonlit night, and despite what pretty poets say, the night is only half the day. So I would like to truly finish what was foolishly begun. For the story is not ended, and the play is never done until we've all of us been burned a bit and burnished by the sun. Which I just love that piece so much. It really does give you that sense of landscape looks different in moonlight versus the harsh reality of day. So the second act proceeds, and you see that El Gallo has played an interesting part in making this happy tableau fall apart right away. This Plum is Too Ripe is a song I cannot recommend highly enough. Find it on Spotify or Google it, and it's a great song. Toward the end of the second act, El Gallo comes back out on stage confessing that he has had a part in all of this pain with this lovely monologue. There is a curious paradox that no one can explain. Who understands the secret of the reaping of the grain? Who understands why spring is born out of winter's laboring pain? Or why all of us must die a bit before we grow again? I do not know the answer. I merely know it's true. And I hurt them for that reason. And myself a little bit too. And that sets up this beautiful song of reconciliation between the two young lovers. All right. So with the theatrical, I will then move into more modern day poetry. The way I absorb poetry these days is through this fabulous publication. Oh, you can't see it because I blurred. The New Yorker. So I have a stack of New Yorkers, but then I thought I should just find it because I have my online subscription as well. And I would like to read some of the poems that have been published recently in the New Yorker. One of the poems is fun. The poems range from very important and dealing with topics from today. That I'm going to start with one that is darker and I think important because this is something we all are dealing with. This is from David Baker. He's professor emeritus at Denison University. And it's called 6 Notes. Come down to us. Come down with your song, little wren. The world is in pieces. We must not say so. In the dark hours, in the nearest branches, I hear your thrum. The deer come to die beside the creek, mud, the color of walnut stain, reek and run off from the new development there beyond the woods. Rib and skull, no jawbone. It makes a soundless scream. I hope for peace when I walk here sometimes in the dark. If not peace, clarity, and if not clarity, at least a place to breathe, else I'll scream too. Come down, little dove, far above the bay. I hear you in a thirsty palm or up beyond the rocks. A windy reed of songs. Blue sun, blue cloud above the sweeping bay. Sometimes we have to say so. I don't know how. A man, a boy, an anger with no tongue took his automatic rifle to a school today. The report we hear, discharge, echo, is the sound of sorrow reloading. No matter where we walk, we hear it call. Little wing, little creek, little bay, dark hour. Come down with your beaks of mourning and blood. That struck me when I read it in the magazine, and I tore it out and kept it because the echoes that we hear so often are short-lived for those not directly impacted until it happens again and again and again. And I got that sense from the poet. My next poem is from Emily Frogas. And for me, I read this and instantly thought of work and took it as a moment of gratitude from a poet who found themselves in a situation where the night nurse was important. So this is The Night Nurse. The night nurse turns me in my bed and changes the white sheets under me. They're wet, they're soiled, and the night nurse washes my face and changes my gown. I am clean and refreshed because of the night nurse. The night nurse comes to me with a pill in a tiny cup. I take the pill from her beautiful hands, and the night nurse takes away my pain so I may sleep without plague of dreams or fear of never waking. The moon is out. The night nurse does not notice. The night nurse only watches me. I am life and death to the night nurse. I am more important to the night nurse than the full pink moon over which the poet obsesses. The night nurse comes flying low over me like a silent drone. The heart is beating peacefully with an upside down bat. The heart is racing like a Serengeti cheetah. The heart must be listened to, beat by beat, minute by minute. The night nurse knows my heart like no one else on earth. The night nurse comes with a needle. I would cringe with anyone else, but the night nurse slips the hypodermic under my skin into a blue vein, and I do not mind. For I have given myself up. The night nurse needs my blood, and I gladly give her my blood. And I think I've got like 3 or 4 more minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Natalie Shapiro is who the next poem comes from, also published in the New Yorker. She teaches at University of California, Irvine. And I loved this because Alanis Morissette, the song Ironic, is the focal point of this. And when I read it in the magazine, again, I didn't tear this one out. I just threw the little subscription notice in there so I could find it again. Having been a kid amid the release and reception of the Alanis Morissette song Ironic, having absorbed the scoffing over how some scenarios detailed within are not in fact ironic, made me shy. Going forward, to term things ironic, in case I was getting it wrong, I even hesitated to attach the label to Romeo after his life ended a mere half hour prior to Juliet's waking, though, of course, that's ironic. Next day is just getting berated or scraping against what the state won't fix or aching at the door, and still, I wept when you said that that to be here is sacred. I wept in agreement. I also wept because the next day is Juliet waking. Yet taking her dead when she looks so dead, a mistake, who wouldn't be forgiven for mistaking. And this is a fast one. Oh, there were so many good ones from the New Yorker. All right. I think now is the time for me to just sing the rose and give up the platform. Yes?
If you like.
Okay. Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need. But I say love, it is a flower, and you, its only seed. It's the heart afraid of breaking that never learns to dance. And it's the dream afraid of waking that never takes the chance, and it's the one who won't be taken, who cannot seem to give, and the soul afraid of dying that never learns to live. Just remember, in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, lies the seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, for that marvelous singing and the loving and compassionate poems you chose. I always feel you're singing just to me. I guess that's what a singer does. It makes you feel you're the one she's singing to. So thank you, Jennifer. And here's Courteney Bailey.
Hi, Harry. Hi, everybody. That's very hard to follow. Jennifer, you're quite tremendous. Thank you, Harry. This is such a highlight to be a part of. My daughter was on part of it. She's going to read a little excerpt in our last poem, and it's something by Amanda Gorman, and that's how we're going to end. And it's something she read for her school. Yeah, I agree with Bob. That was Jennifer. I look forward to any time you can bless us with your music. And you said something about, first of all, Harry, it's lovely to have this platform, but Jen, you said something about so much of this reminds you of work. And I think the beautiful part of poetry is they do reflect, you choose things that reflect how you're feeling in the present. And I think we are all very much thinking of our life in the present and how we all serve and how we serve this organization. So I've got a couple short ones, Harry, and a third, and then the last one's a bit longer, where my daughter will, if we have time, offer her part that she had memorized. But I want to start with one. It's by Grantland Rice, and it's called How to Be a Champion. And they say it has nothing to do with sports, although I tend to look to sports analogies, but this is about life. And it starts with, you wonder how they do it. You look to see the knack. You watch the foot in action, or the shoulder, or the back. But when you spot the answer, when the higher glamours link, you'll find in moving higher up the laurel-covered spire that most of it is practice and the rest of it is work. And it just, to me, these all resonate about just trucking on day to day and how practice becomes what you do. And it becomes what you're made of. The next one, this is very short, and it's a Rudyard Kipling. I love Kipling. There's many that I love, but this one, and I'd like to, if we're in this gender neutral world, it's called I Keep 6 Honest Serving Men. I think it's 6 honest serving people because we all feel this, but it's very short. But it's very powerful, and it's something I really do think of every day. And this one was inspired by something that Coach John Wooden said to me, and Kipling was one of his favorite poets. And this says, I keep 6 honest, serving men. They taught me all I know. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. And it just, for me, this is something I think we can use in every part of our life. If we can answer these 6 honest questions, we'll probably always be guided in the right place. And I think about that often. And I also think about how it keeps us very articulate and how Bob keeps us very articulate in our messaging. And I think, Harry, I've mentioned to you when I was little, my teachers always said you have a knack for language, but keep it concise. And that's always been something that I try to look towards. So at that, I've got two, maybe three others if we can get to it. And this one is called At Day's End by John Hall. And here we go. Is anybody happier because you passed his way? Does anybody remember that you spoke to him today? The day is almost over and its toiling time is through. Is there anyone to utter now a kindly word of you? Can you say tonight, in parting with the day that is slipping fast, is a single heart rejoicing over what you did or said? Does the man whose hopes were fading now with courage look? Did you waste the day or lose it? Was it well or sorely spent? Did you leave, I love this one line, did you leave a trail of kindness or a scar of discontent? As you close your eyes in slumber, do you think God will say, you have earned one more tomorrow by the work you did today? I think of that one all the time. All the time. Harry, it's really ridiculous that every time I read a poem, I want to cry on your panel. So you're like the Rod Tidwell of the Jerry Maguire, where it's like, I'm not going to cry, but here you get us to cry. And then I have one more quick one. And then my daughter's going to read part of Amanda Gorman if we have the moment. So kind of speaking on the words of how you just deal with the present. This is my daughter. And by the way, I have to say these kids nowadays, very soft. The only reason, Harry, that she's home with me today is because her school felt that when Halloween falls on a weekday, they should have the next day off. I highly disagree. I thought she could have gone to school, but apparently, it gives me the blessing of having this beautiful girl with me. And she wanted so badly when I was talking to her about what I was doing today, because I brief her, it's like the White House. We brief each other on what we're doing. And she wants to say hi to all the residents. Say hi to Garen.
Hi.
Yeah. So we've got another poem, and then yes, and next is yours. Okay, I'm going to do one more, and then we're going to get to Amanda's if we have a quick moment. So the next one is called "Shut the Door on Yesterday," and it's by Vivian Larimore. I have shut the door on yesterday, its sorrows and mistakes. I have locked within its gloomy walls past failures and mistakes. And now I throw the key away and seek another room, and I furnish it with hope and smiles and every springtime bloom. No thought shall enter this abode. This has a taint of pain, and envy, malice, and distrust shall never entrance gain. I have shut the door on yesterday, and I throw the key away. Tomorrow holds no fear for me, since I have found today. So all of these are about hope, and it's about life. It's about the legacies we all want to leave, and really has a lot to do, Harry, with you and Bob and Sharon and Jen and all of our residents listening. This is just about how we look to tomorrow. Somebody, I don't remember who it was, said they don't look to the past. And I thought that was a really kind of stark thing to say. because I do look to the past for the great memories, but also the more you look forward, the better it all becomes. So the last one is the Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman. And that's okay, babe. This is a bit a long one. Harry, I can read quickly. How much time do I have before we get to Sharon?
The time, yeah.
Plenty of time.
Yeah.
We're okay?
Yeah, we have about.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to read the first stanzas, and then she's going to come in with the part that, yes, exactly. You're not, yes. She's really wants to make sure that her part, you are getting your part. Don't worry. We will submit your time to the locals. You're good. Yeah. Thank you for my director. All right. So we're going to we read it in succession. Okay. You say hi to Harry? Hi. All right, here we go. It's live TV, Harry, so apologies. All right, so this one is called The Hill We Climb by the amazing Amanda Gorman, who we all know. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country, and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine. But that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. So we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We must close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony to all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew. Even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one should make them afraid. If we are to live up to our own time, it's a little loud, huh? That's okay. To our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all of the bridges we've made. Here's your part, sweetie. That is the promise to Glade.
The hill we climb if only we dare. It's because being American is more than a pride of who we inherit. It's the past we stepped into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it. We would destroy our community if it meant delaying democracy, and this effort very nearly succeeded.
In this truth, in this faith, we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared in its inception, and we did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour. But within it, we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked how we can possibly prevail over catastrophe, now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? And I'm going to end it right there because there are more stanzas, but how could catastrophe possibly prevail over good? We will not let it. And this, Harry, is so beautiful that you give us this opportunity to kind of wax poetic, literally, and just offer these beautiful words. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Courteney, and your lovely daughter. How old is your daughter?
How old are you?
8.
8. No, you're way ahead of most 8-year-olds. You're fabulous as your mother is. And thank you for the poetry you chose was full of hope and compassion, and you rejoice in your poetry that you chose, and also that one line or phrase that you used, trail of kindness. You certainly have left a trail of kindness for all of us. So thank you both. You're both fabulous. And our next poet, our next reader is Sharon Siefert.
Hi, thank you, Harry. Hope you guys can hear me okay.
Yes.
So I have definitely a variety of from different periods of time. And it'd be interesting if there's a common thread in them, maybe. So the first one is from M. Scott Momaday. I am the turquoise woman's son on top of belted mountain, beautiful horse, slim like a weasel. My horse has a hoof like a striped agate. His fetlock is like a fine eagle plume. His legs are like quick lightning. My horse's body is like an eagle plumed arrow. My horse has a tail like a trailing black cloud. I put flexible goods on my horse's back. The little holy wind blows through his hair. His mane is made of short rainbows. My horse's ears are made of brown corn. My horse's eyes are made of big stars. My horse's head is made of mixed waters. From the holy waters, he never knows thirst. My horse's teeth are made of white shell. The long rainbow is in his mouth for a bridle, and with it I guide him. When my horse neighs, different colored horses follow. When my horse neighs, different colored sheep follow. I am wealthy because of him. Before me peaceful, behind me peaceful, under me peaceful. There we go. Courteney, now I'm going to cry. Over me peaceful, all around me peaceful. Peaceful voice when he neighs. I am everlasting and peaceful. I stand for my horse. So what I love about this is how I can just immediately envision this beautiful, majestic animal. And, the calm that comes from being around horses. Maybe some of you enjoy that. I certainly do. And I also love the rhythmicness, particularly at the end of the poem. Just a beautiful, beautiful cadence. So, on to something completely different. This one is from way, way, way long ago. Hildegard, another female poet. Harry, I don't know if she was maybe the first to be published, perhaps. I don't know. But here's a short one from her. I am the one who praises echoes on high. I adorn all the earth. I am the breeze that nurtures all things green. I encourage blossoms to flourish with ripening fruits. I am led by the Spirit to feed the purest streams. I am the rain coming from the dew that causes the grasses to laugh with the joy of life. I am the yearning for good. That one just really particularly speaks to me. I take a lot of comfort from observing the world around me and nature, and feel like she encapsulated that in such a short, brief one. So on then, my next one is from Rilke, if I'm saying that correctly. And it's just a brief excerpt. She who reconciles the ill-matched threads of her life and weaves them gratefully into a single cloth. It's she who drives the loud mouths from the hall and clears it for a different celebration. where the one guest is you. In the softness of evening, it's you she receives. You are the partner of her loneliness, the unspeaking center of her monologues. With each disclosure, you encompass more, and she stretches beyond what limits her to hold you. I think that one really speaks to me because of the concept of kind of taking control of your own voice and speaking up. And I think I'm going to try and find one more. Harry, how are we doing on time?
We have plenty of time.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh. I guess I'm reading too fast. Okay. So one of my other all-time favorite poets is more contemporary, John O'Donohue. And I've shared his poems with maybe with you before, and certainly with others around motion picture. So this one, excuse me, I'll get the next. Allergies. Excuse me. It's called For Courage. When the light around you lessens and your thoughts darken until your body feels fear turn, cold as a stone inside, when you find you're bereft of any belief in yourself and all you unknowingly leaned on has fallen, when one voice commands your whole heart and it is raven dark, steady yourself and see that it is your own thinking that darkens your world. Search and you will find a diamond thought of light. Know that you are not alone and that this darkness has a purpose. Gradually it will school your eyes to find the one gift your life requires, hidden within this night corner. Invoke the learning of every suffering you have suffered. Close your eyes and gather all the kindling about your heart to create one spark. That is all you need to nourish the flame that will cleanse the dark of its weight of festered fear. A new confidence will come alive to urge you toward higher ground, where your imagination will learn to engage difficulty at its most rewarding threshold. So I that one kind of struck me with what we are all experiencing right now, and that it's a good moment for courage. Let's see. I think I have one more over here. This one is also a contemporary poet, and I may have chosen something from him before, maybe even this one, or I might have shared it with our COVID task force at one point in the last couple of years. It's called The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. Listen, when despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars, waiting for their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world, and I'm free. So I think my common thread, if there is one, is just the comfort that the world around us can bring us. So, Harry, I think that's all that I prepared for. I guess we have some free time.
Well, thank you, Sharon. You know, your courage, your awareness of the authentic self, you know, all the poems you chose are very nourishing, and they're important for all of us. As you said, right now is a good time for courage. And I believe that every moment is a time for courage.
Yes.
Before we go on, I just wanted to say one thing to all of you. That I'm deeply grateful to all of you for your generosity of spirit and your good works. Being a resident here, you know, I receive what you work for, and I just appreciate that deeply. And also, I'm very deeply appreciative of your love and support of poetry. It gives us all a little time out of time, and you are all sterling examples of people who are hard workers and good workers, and also lovers of great writing. So I appreciate that. And, Jennifer was going to read a poem that she wrote recently. And then after that, we can talk for a few minutes. Jennifer, would you please read your poem?
Yeah, this happened to me the other day, and inspired by Harry's poetry hour, I decided to write it quickly, and then I sent it over to Harry, and I thought if he approved it, then sure, right?
Yes.
It's called Rushing from Moment to Moment. I dashed from my office to help, and in my path landed a majestic dragonfly with shimmering orange-lined wings. He blocked my path and stopped me long enough for me to hear him whisper, "Take this moment to admire my beauty, breathe, and go no further. Recall this moment, not with a photo. Why? Now think. Turn around. You forgot your phone."
That's great.
great, Jennifer. Thank you. We have 6 more minutes left. Why don't we just go around the room in the order that we read, starting with Bob, Jennifer, Courteney, and Sharon, and say whatever you want about the reading or anything you want to say about poetry. So here's our leader, Bob Beitcher.
Thank you, Harry. Harry, I think you know this, and I've said it in the poetry group from time to time. One of the things that intrigues me is, what is poetry? What is prose? Is there a difference? What's the difference? Is poetry just prose broken up into weird fragmented lines, or is there really a substantive difference? And when you sit through an hour of poetry like this, you really get to see kind of the breadth of what poetry is, what it can be, how it can move you, how the rhythms and the cadence and the images are so special and penetrating. I started mine off with 2 poems that, intrigue me because I don't know what they are. They're sort of fragments, images, kind of smashed together. They could be rearranged and maybe they, would create something different. So I'd love this hour because, it's the experience, it's hearing poetry read and experiencing it and filtering it through our own lenses that makes it such a powerful medium and so much fun. So I thank everyone today, and especially you, Harry, for putting us all together.
Thank you, Bob. Jennifer?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for this hour every week, as you know. But it's great to hear reinterpretations of old classics. Do you know what I mean? That
you're calling us old classics, or
we are.
Like
We're all old classics. No, the fact that some of the poetry that we were reading was as contemporary as 2 years ago, or 6 weeks ago, and some of it has roots in the 1800s.
Yeah,
and
Middle Ages.
The Middle Ages. But we talk about this, or at least I say this almost every week, the beauty of the celebration of language, that poetry is the artistry of language. It is a verbal snapshot of a time frame, but it does so much more than what a picture can do, because you get into the emotional depths and the moment of those moments. And you take The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman, and it gives you, it takes me instantly back, of course, to the inauguration, where the place that I was in was so different from Amanda Gorman, but there's so much aligned with it. And there was for many people, that was a moment of turning into a more hopeful time frame from what had been a dark period with COVID. COVID was about a year into our consciousness at that time, and that was just a galvanizing moment. So, and to have, you know, an 8-year-old with us when there's probably a 98-year-old watching, that's what we're all about as well, is connecting the generations, connecting the time through creativity. So
Courteney?
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you. Courteney?
Harry, I'll just say thank you again. You know, anytime I get the chance to see you and experience you and your words, and the fact that you've done this for all of us and provided this platform that I don't know if we'd all, you know, take the time out of our day to read some poetry. It's beautiful. I don't know if I've ever had a job where I just was asked to take time out of the day to really contemplate on language, and something I love so much. So we love you. To have my daughter be a part of this, to have our generations be a part of this, makes this all feel so special. And I get to hear poetry that's meaningful to people that I care deeply about, right? To hear what's meaningful to Sharon and Bob and Jen and you is lovely. And to just be a part of this is really great. And to be, when life merges so much with work and everything that we're doing, it's lovely to be able to put in the most delicious bites. I think like poetry gives us, it's probably why we cry, and why, you know, food, I hate to compare poetry to food, but truly I think it's like the most delicious bite you can get of literature, and it's quick and it's delicious. This is really awful. I was trying to think of a better bite, you know, it's pizza, but it's like the chicken and waffles of literature. It's like it combines the sweet and savory all together in something really meaningful, and you give us that. So I just love it. I just love that you include us, Harry, and that we got to do this for a second time. So thank you.
Thank you. Courteney. Sharon?
I was going to say, Courteney, that sounds like a great topic for a poem, the chicken waffle.
Sweet and savory, yeah.
It's not chicken soup for the soul. It's chicken and waffles.
Yeah.
An ode to chicken and waffles.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I mean, it's such it was so much fun trying to, you know, go through things and think about what I wanted to share, and so just like the preparation for today was really meaningful. So thank you, Harry, for the opportunity for that. I still feel very much a newbie when it comes to poetry, and feel like I have so much more to discover and explore. It's a whole new universe for me. And that's the other fun part of listening in and hearing the different poets that get brought forward. And I'm curious, I'm picking up a little bit on what Bob was saying about what makes a poem versus prose, because some of the stuff I was reading was more, particularly John O'Donohue, some of his work is more like blessings or prayers, that kind of thing, not necessarily something that has well, I guess the question is, Harry, what is a poem? How would you define a poem versus a...
Well, you know, that's a big question. The Chinese, I heard a classical Chinese scholar translating Chinese poetry, and he said in the classical Chinese time, the word poetry actually means words from the heart. So there are many definitions, but our time is up. And I just want to say one thing, that this has been a sublime hour for me. And as usual, I want to thank Jennifer Clymer for asking me in the first place, and for putting these shows together day after day, year after year. And all of you are just marvelous souls, if I may say that word. And I appreciate all of you. And lastly, I would like to say, to me, poetry is also, we listening to one another and creating harmony and being receptive to each other and making each thing we say count, as Bob always does in all of his prose writing. And we all do that. So at least we try. So thank you all, Bob, Jennifer, Courteney, Sharon, Courtney's daughter. Yes, she's a marvel. So thank you, Jennifer Clymer.
Yeah. Thank
Harry,
you.
yeah, truly a pleasure. Wait, before everybody goes, how do we end your show these days, Harry?
Next week, we have a marvelous show. We have Corinne Conley, Helen Richmond, Tony Sawyer, Kay Wiseman, and Garen Berry. They're going to read the poetry of Christina Rossetti, 1830 born. And I rediscovered her. I loved her young, and then I gave her up for more modern poets, but she's a wonderful poet. And then Lycidas by John Milton. So it'll be a marvelous reading. So thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thank you, Harry. We'll see you all next week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.